He had not expected that practice to end up being a handicap at a time like this. Got it. Should I set the teleport destination to the usual place? Suzuki Satori expressed his agreement. There was a small house in a city over 2,000 kilometers away that he had set as one of their teleport destinations. After that, Suzuki handed over a legacy-class item known as the ghillie cloak to Keno. While it looked like a tattered cape with cloth and strings dangling from it, it was an item that conferred exceptional stealth capabilities. While it was almost useless without concealment skills, it also possessed effects in addition to that, and those additional effects were quite good. Even the level 100 Suzuki Satori would see Keno as a blur, as though she were blending into the landscape once Keno put it on. It was very effective against adversaries with low perceptive abilities. Incidentally, Suzuki Satori had forgotten who he had bought it from, and he only had the one piece, so he had kept it in its original state. He told Keno, who was blurred and indistinct thanks to the ghillie cloak's powers to cast fly and invisibility. The two of them looked down on the city from above. The lack of obstructions meant that their opponents would have a clear view of them too, so it was very likely that they would be attacked. On the other hand, it also meant that it was easy to collect information while flying. After weighing the former against the latter, Suzuki Satori decided that the latter was more important. Of course, he had also used delayed teleportation and other such spells to protect himself. If they were attacked, he would be able to protect Keno as well if he was nearby. That was the power of his gauntlet, the legacy-class item Guardian Heroes. As they looked over the city, the abnormality of this place became even more apparent. Satori, there's nobody here at all. Yes, there's nobody here, and there aren't any zombies around either. After checking their surroundings, he pondered the strangeness of this city as he descended to ground level with Keno. The possibility that came to mind was that someone had invaded the city and then wiped out 400,000 zombies. But that would probably be very difficult to do. It was not that they would lose to zombies, the weakest of the undead, but at the very least they would have left corpses behind. Corpses vanished over time in Yggdrasil, as did those of zombies. But in this world, the zombies' corpses should have remained forever after being struck down. Of course, dead zombies would begin to rot, and after a while they would become skeletonized, and after that the bones would disintegrate. As an aside, moving zombies would not rot or harbor maggots because they were animated by negative energy. However, the loss of negative energy once they were defeated meant that they would rot as normal, flies could lay eggs in them, and small animals would gnaw on them. It had been over 40 years since that incident. Was it possible that someone had buried or cremated 400,000 corpses? Keno, do you think an army invaded this place, killed all the zombies, buried them and then left? I doubt it. Well, you could take about 10,000 soldiers to dig a huge hole and then bury them all in it. It would be very obvious, and there are no signs of it now. What about cremation? It sounds even less likely. After killing a zombie, you could just throw it into a house and burn them with it. But on the whole, I don't see any signs of burning. Currently, Suzuki Satori had not seen any similar signs either. It was clear that Keno had examined the area more carefully than Suzuki Satori, but that was no cause for alarm. That had become a clearly established fact during their 5-year journey. If there were a way to do it, then surely it would be an assembly of high-level priests turning undead at the same time, right? I see. That would have disintegrated the zombies, and it would explain their absence. However, there was a limit to how many times one could turn undead each day, and low-level priests could not use that ability often. Therefore, it would probably be impossible to annihilate a swirling horde of 400,000 zombies without committing sizable numbers to the task. While news would leak more easily as more people took part, Suzuki Satori had not heard about anything like that, even though he had kept his feelers out and listening. Or could it have been a super tier spell like the kind you cast, Satori? Of course, the existence of a spell with that area of effect would be another matter entirely, but we wouldn't be able to tell if we don't enter the city, right? That's true. We'll proceed with caution, then. Yup. The two of them entered through the city gates. While Faye's door would have made entering the city safer, they had to discover what had happened, and if anyone was hiding within by using themselves as bait. Naturally, Suzuki Satori would be fine even if he were attacked from inside the city, so he walked in front of Keno to block the line of fire to her. While it would be pointless if the enemy used an area of effect attack, he would be an excellent shield for her against single target attacks. They passed through the city gates without incident, and they saw a wide street. This was probably the largest street in the city. There were no signs of zombies in this place, which should have been lively and bustling, and they could not hear anything despite pricking up their ears. All that remained was a nauseating silence. It looked as though all the city's residents had abandoned it. However, it did not feel like they had left of their own free will. The goods in the stores remained in place though they were spoiled or rusted, and after checking, even the coins were still in place. While it did not seem like they had left of their own free will, it did not seem like someone had invaded either. No, is it possible someone whose objective was not money had invaded this place? Magic items were more precious than mountains of gold and silver. If this city had a powerful magic item, then it might be more valuable than all the wealth in this city. However, that theory was also suspect. Well, one could not rule out the possibility that such an item existed. Surely there ought to be a more elegant way of obtaining it. Like say, sending someone with these skills to sneak into the city and so on. Ah, Satoru. You can dominate the undead, can't you, Satoru? Can you use that ability to order zombies to go outside? It's possible, but there are various conditions for dominating the undead. For instance, there are limits on the maximum number of undead that can be controlled at one time, and how powerful of an undead being can be dominated. If everyone in this city became a zombie, then guiding them anywhere would be annoyingly repetitive. Even so, if they were undead, surely they could ignore their lifespans and do it over and over again, right? You mean a cabal of undead beings like Corpus of the Abyss? Well, it's not impossible. Do you mean they'd be walking around and dominating undead over and over again inside this city? If it were me, I think it would have been fine to leave them alone since I was undead and wouldn't have been attacked anyway. If that really was the case, then I'd have to take my hat off to their diligence. What if it were because of an item? From what I know, there are no unlimited use items like that. If such a balance-breaking item did exist, it would probably be a world-class item or something similar. I can break through the limits of my imagination no matter how much I think. We really do need information after all. Then how about taking a look at the castle? Keno was pointing to the castle of the Marquis who ruled the surrounding lands. It was situated on a small hill, and they could clearly tell how solid its walls were. Suzuki Satoru agreed with that suggestion. If there were any traces left behind, they would probably find them in the castle. After all, it was the most luxurious and comfortable place in the city, which made it perfect as a home base. Also, the castle sported several imposing towers, which made it feel like the ideal place for overlooking the city. The two of them cast fly spells and headed toward the castle in a beeline. If they looked down, they would see an empty city below them. It was a hollow metropolis, without so much as the presence of small animals. Having zombies wandering around would probably have made it less scary. Still, there's no movements here at all. Well, he had coolly spouted some stuff about movements and the like. Suzuki Satoru was not very clear about what he was saying. However, it was true that certain monsters had an overwhelming presence about them. The monster he had encountered with the most powerful presence was the Brightness Dragon Lord. Was this city destroyed by something else? A plague. Poison. But that would be weird, no? If a plague had broken out here, then they would have burned the victims, and I think there would be signs of that within the city. They had found what looked like paupers' districts when they were observing the city from above, but no traces that looked like scorch marks. Just as Suzuki Satoru was beginning to admire Keno's focus, she continued speaking. Since there were no such signs in the paupers' district, where a disease would have the highest chance of spreading, I think that would rule out such a possibility. Suzuki Satoru had not thought that far ahead. He had to hand it to Keno. In that case, did the destruction of this city lead to some kind of chain reaction zombification? For example, was it because a monster with an instant death or was walking around inside the city or something? But if that were the case, wouldn't it be strange that there were no corpses? It's as though everyone here suddenly vanished. And it would also be very strange for people setting out from this place to abandon all their wealth. Suzuki Satoru and Keno tilted their heads in bafflement. When they reached the castle, the two of them walked inside without any hesitation. Keno held Suzuki Satoru's hand. This was a bad move in a dangerous place. Fighting while holding someone's hand was very disadvantageous. However, Suzuki Satoru held Keno's hand tightly without saying a word.